The night sky was filled with smoke and red dust. The air smelled like metal and ash. Ethan Cole, a human field medic, moved through the ruins of a foreign world, his boots sinking into the soft gray soil. He was tired, covered in dirt, and his medical scanner beeped every few seconds trying to find a life sign among the wreckage. His mission was simple: search for survivors after the last war between humans and the Vailari race. But after days of silence, Ethan had started to believe there was no one left alive. He walked past what used to be a palace. The walls had melted from the heat of plasma strikes. The sky above shimmered with electric storms, lighting up the broken towers. The translator on his wrist whispered faint sounds from the radio. "Ethan, Sector 6 clear." Nothing breathing. He sighed and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Copy that," he said quietly, though he didn't believe the war should have happened in the first place. He was about to turn back when the scanner on his wrist blinked, faintly at first, then stronger. A pulse, a heartbeat. One life form, weak but alive. His heart jumped. "No way," he muttered and started running toward the signal. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the fallen halls. The scanner led him deeper underground, past shattered statues and the remains of something that looked like a throne. At the far end of a cracked corridor, a soft blue light glowed. Ethan knelt and brushed away the debris. Beneath the rubble lay a woman, her skin pale like silver, her hair long and white, glowing faintly. Her body was still, her chest barely moving. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "You're alive," he whispered. The scanner identified her energy signature. His eyes widened. The data couldn't be right. Designation Vailari Royal. Princess Lyra, the last known survivor of her people, the one whose disappearance had ended the war. He carefully lifted her from the rubble. She was cold to the touch. Strange blue veins glowed faintly beneath her skin. Her eyes fluttered open just barely. She looked at him through hazy silver pupils. The translator on his wrist cracked to life, trying to form her voice. "Why, human here," she whispered weakly. Her voice sounded like soft wind. Ethan held her gently. "I'm here to help," he said. "Stay still. You're going to be okay." He opened his medical kit, scanning her vitals. Nothing looked normal. Her blood pressure was collapsing, heart rate fading. Her oxygen levels were dangerously low. Ethan connected his oxygen supply to her, but her lungs didn't respond. He tried nanobot injectors, but the readout said, "Rejection, incompatible biology." He cursed under his breath and looked at her wounds. Blue liquid, her blood, was leaking slowly from a deep cut near her ribs. She coughed and spoke again, her words weak. "My people. Gone, my blood. Fading. My light. Will die." Ethan stared at the monitor again. He didn't understand all of it, but he saw one strange thing. Her blood type showed a minor compatibility with human plasma. Only 1%, but still something. "That's impossible," he murmured. The other soldiers had told him not to try crazy things. "If it's not human, you'll both die," his captain had warned. But as he looked at her pale face, her breath slowing, he knew there wasn't time to think. Her fingers twitched against his arm. "Please, let it end," she whispered. Her voice trembled with pain. Ethan shook his head. "No, not yet. You're not dying today." He grabbed the emergency transfusion tube from his pack and stared at it. It wasn't meant for cross-species use. The system would lock him out. He hesitated, but then he remembered his old mentor's words. A medic's job isn't to choose who deserves to live. It's to keep life going no matter what it costs. He pressed the override code on his wrist console. The machine beeped a warning. "Biological incompatibility detected. Procedure not recommended." He ignored it. "I know," he said softly, "but you'll die without it." He rolled up his sleeve, disinfected his arm, and connected the transfusion line. The needle slid in and his warm blood began to flow through the tube toward her veins. At first, nothing happened. Lyra's breathing stayed shallow. Ethan watched the monitor with wide eyes. The warning alarms blinked red. "Come on," he whispered. "Please work." The blue veins on her skin started to glow brighter. The room filled with a faint hum like static electricity. Suddenly, her body tensed. The glow around her eyes flickered and spread down her arms. The monitor spiked, showing new life signs. Ethan gasped, feeling a strange pull in his own chest, as if something was draining more than just blood. His heartbeat began to sync with hers, each thump matching in rhythm. He gritted his teeth. His vision blurred. "It's working," he said, his voice faint. Lyra's eyes opened fully now, glowing silver blue. She looked at him confused. "Human at giving life?" she whispered. He nodded weakly. "Yeah, just helping." Her fingers reached up shakily and touched his face. "Why do this?" she asked in her strange accent. He smiled faintly even as his strength faded. "Because life's worth saving. Doesn't matter what world it comes from." His hand fell to the ground. The machine kept humming, the lights flickering like distant stars. For a moment, both of them were still. Ethan felt cold spreading through his limbs. He thought this might be it, but then a sudden warmth rushed back through his veins. The glow from her body grew brighter, spreading across the walls. The palace debris began to vibrate slightly, as if reacting to her returning energy. Lyra sat up slightly, her breathing stronger now. The blue blood in her veins began to turn lighter, shifting toward a faint golden hue. Ethan stared at her through half-closed eyes. He could barely move, but he felt her energy brushing against his mind, soft, warm, and calm. She looked down at him and whispered something in her native tongue that the translator couldn't catch. Her voice sounded like gratitude. He smiled faintly, but his eyes were closing. The last thing he saw was her hand resting on his chest, glowing softly. "You live human," she said quietly, her tone full of wonder. He tried to answer, but darkness pulled him away. Hours passed. The air grew still. The wreckage no longer glowed red, but silver. Outside, the human rescue team tracked his signal and found him lying on the ground beside her. One of the soldiers gasped. "He's still breathing." "And so is she?" They lifted Ethan carefully. The med scanner showed strange readings from both their bodies, 2 heartbeats pulsing in perfect sync. As they carried him to the ship, the alien princess's hand twitched. Her eyes opened just slightly, looking at the human who had given her part of his life. The translator caught her whisper. "Your blood," became light. Then she fell silent again, her glow steady and alive. When the rescue ship took off into the dark sky, no one noticed the faint golden light still shining where they had lain, the proof that something impossible had just begun. And in the deep silence of that ruined world, where once only war had echoed, 2 heartbeats now pulsed together, one human and one alien, keeping each other alive beneath the same stars. Ethan woke up to a soft humming sound and the faint scent of metal and medicine. The ceiling above him was smooth and silver, with gentle lights that glowed like a sunrise. For a long moment he didn't know where he was. His chest ached and his body felt heavy, but his heart was beating strong, too strong. When he tried to move, a pulse of warmth spread through his body, almost like a second heartbeat. He frowned and looked down at his arm. There, beneath his skin, faint golden lines glowed in rhythm with his pulse. The medical AI beside his bed beeped softly. "Welcome back, Ethan Cole. Your recovery is at 70%. Please remain still." He swallowed and whispered, "Where am I?" "You are aboard the United Rescue Vessel Hope's Light," the AI replied. "You were found unconscious beside a living Valari female. Both your vitals were connected through an unknown biological resonance." Ethan blinked in confusion. Then memory rushed back, dust, blue light, and a dying alien princess. He sat up despite the AI's protest. "Where is she?" The door slid open with a soft hiss. Standing there was Princess Lyra, alive. She wore a white recovery gown, her silver hair flowing over her shoulders, her eyes glowing faintly. But something about her was different. Her once blue veins now shimmered gold, the same color that pulsed faintly beneath Ethan's skin. She stepped closer, her expression calm but filled with emotion. "You woke up?" she said softly through the translator. Her voice was steady now, warm and musical. "You should not have survived that blood link." "No human should," Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess I'm not very good at listening to orders." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "You gave your blood to save me." "But our blood did not only mix. It joined." He frowned. "Joined? What do you mean?" She raised her hand. The air between them shimmered with a soft light. His chest pulsed in time with hers. "When you gave your blood, our life forces connected. You feel my heartbeat inside you and I feel yours. We are linked." Ethan looked down at the golden glow on his skin, then back at her. "So, if something happens to one of us?" She nodded slowly. "The other will feel it. If one dies, the bond may end both." For a moment, silence filled the room. Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. That's a pretty serious medical side effect. Lyra gave a faint smile. It is also something my people used to believe in. A sacred bond of life. Long ago, Vailari healers could share blood with those they loved most. It was rare. Now it lives again through you. He didn't know what to say. He looked at her, still glowing faintly, fragile yet strong. Well, he said quietly, then I guess I'm honored to be part of your legend. Lyra's eyes softened. You are more than part of it, human. You changed it. Days passed as the ship repaired itself and the crew studied what happened. Scientists tried to understand the bond, taking readings and scans. They were amazed to find both their DNA strands had adapted to each other. Ethan's body produced a faint trace of Vailari energy, while Lyra's blood now carried human oxygen cells. It was as if nature itself had decided to make them one living system. But not everyone saw it as a miracle. The military commander in charge of the rescue team called it an anomaly. He ordered the scientists to separate them for safety. We can't risk contamination, he said coldly. That alien is unstable and the human's condition is unknown. Lyra refused. He saved my life, she said firmly. You will not cage him. The commander ignored her. He ordered the guards to escort Ethan away, but when they tried to touch him, a pulse of light erupted from both Ethan and Lyra. The guards fell back unharmed but stunned. The golden marks on their skin glowed brighter. The energy link between them was protecting them both. Enough, Lyra cried out. Her voice echoed with strange strength, vibrating through the walls. No more cages. No more fear. Realizing she could not be controlled, the commander backed off. Ethan looked at her, surprised. Guess you're feeling better, he said with a small grin. She looked back at him and smiled faintly. Better because of you. When they were finally allowed some peace, Lyra asked to visit her homeworld one last time. The crew hesitated, but Ethan agreed to go with her. Together, they descended back to the planet where they had first met. The land was quiet now, covered in ashes and silent winds. The palace ruins still stood under the dim sky. Lyra walked through the halls slowly, her hand brushing the broken stones. My people built beauty, she said softly, then destroyed it with pride. But you, a stranger, gave life when we had none. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe it's time this place lived again. As they walked, a small group of surviving Vailari approached from the shadows, weak, frightened, but alive. When they saw their princess, they fell to their knees. The royal light returns, one whispered. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Rise, she said gently. The war is over. Life begins again. But the peace didn't last long. A transmission reached them from orbit. An enemy faction, survivors of the rebel Vailari who had caused the war, were approaching. They had learned the princess lived, and they feared her bond with a human would unite both species. They sent warships to finish what they started. Ethan and Lyra stood together as the first explosions lit the sky. The ground shook beneath them. The bond between them pulsed fiercely, the golden light burning brighter. They're coming for you, Ethan said. Lyra shook her head. They come for both of us now. As the ships descended, Lyra stepped forward. She placed her hand on Ethan's chest. Our bond gives me strength, but it also gives you my power. Together we can stand, he nodded. Then let's make sure your world sees what hope looks like. The sky exploded with light as enemy forces landed. Ethan grabbed a plasma rifle while Lyra raised her hands, her energy flaring like a sun. Golden waves shot from her palms, forming a shield that covered them both. The enemy fire scattered against the glowing barrier. Ethan fired back, aiming not to kill but to drive them away. The bond amplified every heartbeat, every breath, every move they made together. When the dust settled, the enemies fled, their ships retreating to orbit. The ground was quiet again. Lyra sank to her knees, exhausted but smiling. The light from her hands faded, leaving only the glow in her eyes. Ethan knelt beside her. You did it, he said softly. She looked at him, tired but peaceful. No, we did. The survivors gathered around, their faces full of hope. For the first time since the war, the planet's sky began to clear. The golden light of their bond shimmered through the clouds like dawn. Lyra turned to Ethan. Your blood carries more than life. It carries kindness. My people will remember what you gave. He smiled faintly. Then maybe your people will remember that we're not so different. She placed her hand over his, their golden veins glowing together. No, we are not. We are one heartbeat, two souls. And as the sun rose over the silent world, the human and the alien princess stood side by side, not as enemies, not even as savior and saved, but as proof that life, no matter how different, could share the same light.